Today is July 25th edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source, and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois agriculture, we were glad you're here. All right, I am happy to be with you guys on today's program. The agricultural groups are united with Farm Bill soybean production with the weather. Senator Chuck Grassley called for renewal of the Farm Bill. A lot of agricultural groups are united about the Farm Bill for right now, alongside with declining commodity markets. The NCG was in Washington, D.C. for last week about the demand for a new farm bill in Washington. The heat is on for this weekend in the Midwest for soybean production on the weekend for that heat. Beans are looking good with a lot of heavy rain in central Illinois. The Senator Chuck Grassley called for a renewal to the Farm Bill. Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa. He was in discussion panel with the farmers in his home state of Iowa. Farmers are concerned about their income and demand are lower than previously years for soybean. We were happy to talk with Cesar Cruz from Advanced Trading on Brazilian production for today's program. That's right. We were talking with other Cesar on the show. And we were talking to Matt Jungleman on Farm Progress show in Boone, Iowa for next month. Stay tuned on Back Road to Illinois. We were joining with Cesar Cruz from Advanced Trading in Bloomington, Illinois. He does look at Brazil's agricultural for advanced trading. Welcome to the show. How are you, Cesar?
I'm doing very well, Cesar. Nice meeting you. I'm happy to be here in your show.
Let's start with our conversation about Brazil's agricultural for today.
Well, sounds good. I can start talking a little bit about Brazil. Let me introduce myself first. I'm the director of research with Advanced Trading. I'm native Brazilian. I speak Portuguese. Forgetting how to speak Portuguese sometimes. My wife's family is actually from the US. My in-laws are producers here in Illinois. And I come from Brazil. I've been with Advanced Trading for almost 3 years now. Before coming to Advanced Trading, I was a professor and I'm consulting in Brazil for the agriculture sector. So I've been working with producers from corn, soybean producers, and also from the producers from the ethanol industry in Brazil. So this is kind of what my experience with the agriculture sector is, both in Brazil and here in the US. But here we're here today to talk about Brazil. I'm going to try to share a little bit of my experience with you guys. And Cesar, feel free to interrupt me at any second, either because of my accent from the south, from Brazil, or if I'm speaking too much or too fast. As I mentioned before, I was a professor, so I like talking. Okay, but let's start off here talking a little bit about giving you an overview of what Brazil looks like, how we compare Brazil to the US, and some topics that I selected for you today, and give you an opinion of what can happen in the future, some constraints that Brazil may face going forward for corn, soybean production, especially those two crops that I'm going to cover here for you today. So when we talk Brazil, it's hard to separate Brazil from other countries in South America. Brazil is the largest soybean producer and exporter in the world. Brazil is one of the main corn producers, the third largest corn producer in the world. Last year, Brazil was the first exporter leaving us here in the US behind, but we are taking again the first position as the largest exporters, the US. But in addition to Brazil, we also have another very important player in South America, which is Argentina. Argentina is also big in corn production and exports. Argentina produces a decent amount of beans also, but they are the main soybean oil and soybean meal exporters in the world. In addition to Brazil and Argentina, there are other smaller producers like Paraguay, which is not very small, especially in the soybean production. Paraguay, Uruguay, Bolivia, which actually all the production either stays in the domestic market or they export to Brazil and Argentina for crushing and for domestic use. This is what happens with South America. Speaking not only about Brazil, let's start with beans. I'm going to be doing beans and corn a little bit. Brazil is, as I mentioned before, is the largest soybean producer in the world, but Brazil took over the first position from the US in 2016-15, when Brazil became the largest producer. And since 2021, Brazil has increased its soybean production by almost 4 times. Whereas here in the US, our production increased by 1.5 times. So it's a big increase in only 24, 25 years for beans production in Brazil. And most of that is due to area expansion. When you compare yields in Brazil and US for beans, they are very similar, but Brazil has been increasing its production area with beans, and not only beans, of corn and other crops. We can talk more about that later. When you talk about corn, Brazil has also increased almost 3 times the amount of corn that the country produced between 2023-24, the current crop year for Brazil. Brazil is still harvesting its second corn crop. I'm going to touch that subject later. So they have increased nearly 3 times their production over the last 24, 25 years. And here in the US, we have increased our production by 1.5 times during the same period. But even though Brazil has almost threefold its production over the last 2 decades, Brazil still produces less than half of the total corn production that we have here in the US. But Brazil exports a lot of what they produce. So this is just an idea to give you some numbers to give you an idea of what we are talking about when we refer to Brazil in agriculture, focusing mainly on corn and beans.
What is the yields for Brazil and Argentina for this year with the weather?
So good question. Both Argentina especially had a very big problem with corn production. Producers in Argentina, they had earlier in the season, they had a problem with drought that affected their yield. So they are having yields that are lower than we expected earlier in the season. So that made the US and local estimate decrease their estimates for both corn and beans in Argentina. For Brazil, it's interesting dynamics in the country because Brazil for corn, Brazil produces a total of 3 different crops. The first and the third crop is very small, less than 2% of total production in Brazil. But the first crop, which is around 22, 23% of total production in Brazil, stays in Brazil for domestic consumption. So when we talk about yields production in Brazil, people here in the US and also in Brazil, they are more focused on the second corn crop, which you probably have heard about the term safrinha. And safrinha in Portuguese literally means small crop. But the small crop, corn crop in Brazil actually accounts for 77% of total production in Brazil. So it's no longer a very small crop. A small crop has treated that crop in the past. So that crop now in Brazil is around 80% harvest, and yields are decent. We still have a problem between estimates here in the US and in Brazil. CONAB is the equivalent of the USDA in Brazil. Right now, the difference between their estimates, USDA and CONAB, is around 6 million metric tons. You can multiply that number by nearly 40 to get the numbers in bushels. So we are talking about more than 20 million bushels of difference for local and the USDA estimates for corn. Brazil had a problem with the first corn crop. There are parts of Brazil that are having issues because of dry weather and heat affecting the second corn crop. But overall, the crop is decent. Not as big as Brazil expected and USDA expected, but it's a decent crop. For beans in Brazil, the main issue that we've recently had between Brazil and China, especially when we have this trade battle with the US. One benefit that Brazil also got from probably being from the BRICS, and for the idea that I believe China has for the diversify their markets. Brazil started as of 2 years ago now in 2022 to export corn to China. Brazil had never exported corn to China before the end of 2022, and now China is already the main destination for Brazilian corn. So they have this group of countries. They have more benefits because they have a partnership. They also have a bank that can finance projects in all those countries from the BRICS, and they probably have intentions to have more trade among the countries from this group, from the BRICS. And of course, when you talk about that, it means that there is more competition with US products in general, not only commodities, agricultural commodities.
Is there anything would you like to talk to our listeners about this crop in Brazil since December?
So I would say like something interesting about the crops in Brazil in general. Not only the current crop, I would say, well, let me separate this answer in two parts. Let's talk about the current crop in Brazil and also in Argentina a little bit, and for the next crop marketing year. What is actually, I think most of the attention that we have when the USDA releases the WASDE report is on South America, because we currently have a big gap between local and the USDA estimates for corn and beans in Brazil and Argentina. So right now, I mentioned about this before, but the CONAB is the equivalent agency in Brazil that does all the estimates for crops, crop production and supply and demand in Brazil. Right now, just to give you an idea, for corn, the USDA is estimating that Brazil, for the current market year, that for corn, according to the USDA in Brazil, ends in February next year. The USDA is estimating Brazil to produce 122 million metric tons. CONAB in Brazil is estimating, rounding that up, 116. So there is a 6 million metric tons difference between those two agencies for corn. And this is not like a very small difference. This is actually the largest difference between those two agencies in history. Over the last 3 years, this difference between their estimates have been increasing. So 6 million metric tons is the largest that we have seen. Actually, no, because back in April, that difference was actually more than double that we currently see. So USDA has been decreasing their estimates, CONAB has been increasing the estimates for corn, and the gap has been reducing, but it is still the largest difference in history that we have had for those two agencies. So this is something very important. The market is trying to understand why we have such a difference for corn production. I don't have an answer, but I'm telling you the story. Sorry.
Do you have any final thoughts?
So I would say that for corn, I'm closer to the USDA number. And I think most of my contacts in Brazil are also from the industry, also seeing the crop in Brazil closer to 120 million metric tons. As I mentioned before, Brazil still have like 10% to be harvested, and we're going to see actually probably going to have an idea of how big this crop is when we start seeing more of the exports that Brazil has in the second part of the year for when they harvest the second corn crop. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Don't worry about it.
No, no problem. Sorry, I thought I had interrupted you. Now, for beans, for the current market year, which is for the USDA considers the crop year for Brazil and Argentina for beans from October through September. So it's a little bit different from what we have here in the US. So they are currently 6 million metric tons difference, 5.7, sorry. The gap between CONAB's estimate and USDA is about 6 million metric tons also. Last year it was bigger than that. They had a 7.4 million metric tons difference between those two agencies. And the difference has also been decreasing. It was 8.5 back in April. So again, over the last 3-4 years, those two agencies, they have been showing us very different estimates for corn and beans in Brazil. So it makes our life here at Advanced Trading, and not only our lives, but all analysts, their life is very hard. When you don't know which direction you should go, is either the USDA or CONAB who is right. And we just have to wait for how much we understand that Brazil is using domestically, and especially how much export we see from Brazil. An indication that we have for beans especially is that Brazil has a very large production. They have been exporting a record export for beans in the current year. For corn, you're going to start having a better idea of how big the crop in Brazil was starting this month and next month, because of seasonality. That's when Brazil harvests their second corn crop. You're going to see more exports of corn coming out of Brazil. So that's how we kind of have an indication of how big the production was in Brazil. So this is the first part of my answer. I would say that for the next years, not for the next year, there's a big talk in the market that how much Brazil can expand of their production. There is a very interesting actually article that was published, I think earlier this year, February, January, from researchers from Brazil, from a very important research company in Brazil. It's a state-owned research company. It's called Embrapa. And they estimate that Brazil can increase the planted area with main crops, by 35% if compare last year's area. It means 28 million metric tons more of possible production area in Brazil. And this area, Cesar, is not coming from deforestation. The study only covered pasture areas. It's very interesting, right? Yep.
Thanks, Cesar.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
This is Cesar Cruz for Advanced Trading on Back Roads of Illinois.
Thank you for having me here, and happy to talk to you and everybody who is listening to us.
Welcome back to the show with Matt Jungleman on Back Roads of Illinois for Farm Progress in Central Illinois. How are you?
I'm good. Cesar, it's good to be back with you again.
Let's start with our conversation on the Farm Progress show in Boone, Iowa.
Yeah, so this year's show is shaping up in great shape. Rick is already on site. The first semi loads of tents are already on the grounds and starting to go up in the air. We've got as you would expect. There's all kinds of product introductions and plenty of things for folks to be excited about. The corn crop, it all was in the ground by April 12th. So field demonstrations are on a great pace. It's had plenty of rain and getting plenty of heat. The corn's already starting to dent and fire a little bit, so we're on the way to a nice dry crop for all the machines to harvest and then turn around and do tillage. We're going to have plenty of ground, drive area. It seems to be the year of side by sides. We have 4 different side by side companies all running ride and drives. So whether you're in the market now or you might be in a few years, it's a great opportunity to jump in the cab and take a spin on those. We have the air tractor coming as an exhibitor. So we're going to land a crop duster in the parking lot here in a week or so and get it moved into the show site so that it can be on display, give farmers an opportunity to get up close and personal with a brand new crop sprayer airplane. We've got a new component of our sustainability efforts this year. We're going to have hydration stations sponsored by ADM. So a place that you can, as a visitor, you can fill up your water bottle with a good, clean, cold glass of water and keep yourself cool on what could be a hot day at the end of August. We are in great shape for international visitors. The numbers keep going up and up and up. We obviously had a big dip during COVID, and we're approaching record-setting territory in terms of the countries that we have coming to the show this year. We sold out our Varied Industries tent in April, so made the decision to add a completely separate new additional Varied Industries tent to the show this year, and there's about 30 new exhibitors in there, and that's just about on the verge of being sold out. We've got a new building from a company called Energy Panel Systems, so they put up a new permanent structure right there on 6th Street. So new investments into the show site. We've got a new traffic route in from the north. We typically haven't been able to run in traffic on Highway 17 because it was an at-grade crossing on the railroad line. Now there's an overpass to get folks safely over the railroad tracks, so we can feed in a new traffic route from the north. That's a wonderful addition to the show. Case IH has stepped forward and partnered with us on our Women in the Fields program, our Women in Ag programming at Farm Progress Show and Husker Harvest Days. John Deere is helping us out, providing free internet, free Wi-Fi to all the visitors at the show. You just log in when you get on the grounds, and you'll have, if you set your phone up correctly, you can do Wi-Fi calling, and should help with the connectivity throughout the grounds. Local John Deere dealers having a big auction on site. They think $40 to $50 million worth of equipment will sell over the course of the show, so everybody can come and get a look at some late model equipment that's available to buy. Case IH has their new 260 series combine. We're going to have a farm bill listening session. We're going to have, it looks like Secretary Vilsack's going to make an appearance on Wednesday. So a whole lot of activity. Really excited. Hope everybody marks their calendars for August 27th, 28th, and 29th.
What's new with Whiffly hybrids?
Wiffles is doing our opening ceremonies, and it's always fun. We always have some surprises with Wiffles hybrids. They are our partner for opening ceremonies, and I can't let the cat out of the bag exactly about all the surprises that are happening there. But you can be sure that opening ceremonies are always a lot of fun. Maybe a few celebrities or a fun band that will come and help us perform the national anthem at 8 o'clock each morning. So great partnership with Wiffles.
How is the corn planting and the event providers?
It's good. The crop is in wonderful shape. The host farmers did a great job. John Deere, when we're in Boone, well, actually both sites, John Deere provides a planter and a tractor and an operator. They do the tillage for us ahead of time. So that all went in the ground in really good condition. It was all in the ground by April 12th. It's had a pretty good growing season. So we're very, very confident in the ability to have field demonstrations. It was in question 2 years ago, and we didn't end up getting it done, but got the corn in the ground in time. Should be good as long as we get good weather on show days. We'll be able to put together some really nice demonstrations during the show.
I was in Grand Island, Nebraska.
I was just in Grand Island earlier this week, and everything is in great shape there. They got a little bit of hail on the crop, but won't stop us from having good field demonstrations there. That show is September 10th, 11th, and 12th. The big thing that we're adding at that show is complimentary admission. If folks will register, they get complimentary admission to the show. So that's a big addition. Really looking forward to seeing what that can do for attendance and get a lot of good conversations going between those growers and the exhibitors. Lots of other new things. We've transitioned the livestock industries building, renamed it to be the beef building, tied into our media brand, and lots of new food vendor coming to the show this year. Autonomous demonstrations. Everything is in great shape. We've got a short stature corn plot on the south side of Flag Road from Bayer. On the north side, we've got Z Series soybeans from Pioneer. So when folks walk in, they'll see the latest, the latest technologies coming from both of those big players. And then obviously a lot of beef activity, cattle handling demonstrations, stock dog trials, horse gentling, just lots of stuff on the livestock front at Husker Harvest Days, as you would expect in the Western Corn Belt.
What's new? With technology and especially the equipment in the Farm Progress show.
Well, there's always there's always a lot to learn to keep up on as companies merge and change and that kind of thing. And I think one of the things that everybody's going to want to check out is the new PTX Trimble, Precision Planting, that new merger, and how they're going to present themselves to the customers. They are going to be running some autonomous cart demonstrations at both shows, at Farm Progress Show and Husker Harvest Days. A lot of technology things happening there, and then generally around the grounds, everybody's got a new piece of technology that they're going to be showing off. John Deere's putting an emphasis on their ops center. Case IH has just come out with their 260 series combine. Everybody's going to be able to see that in person. So
how about tilling?
Tillage, we'll run tillage demonstration at 2:00 every afternoon at both shows, actually. After we get done with the harvest demonstration at 11:00 in the morning, we will reset that field that we harvest and run tillage machines right after that. And it's everything from strip till, deep subsoil rippers, vertical tillage, and then all kinds of cover crop seeders and all those kinds of things that are the late breaking technology on display. The tillage demonstration runs a little bit differently than the harvest, from the standpoint that it makes one good pass in front of the crowd and then shuts down and gives everybody the chance to kind of mill around and get a look at the work it did, interact with the professionals, the engineers and the people that design it. That tillage demonstration is a great learning opportunity if you are in the market now, or you will be in the market in the next couple of years, to kind of get yourself educated on what's out there and what the latest stuff is.
Is there anything would you like to talk with our audience about the general admission?
So farmprogressshow.com, you can go there and learn everything you need to go. We just got the show program sent to the publisher, and so we'll be feeding the content from the show program into the website, and you'll start to see press releases and things coming with all the announcements of all the activities happening over those 3 days. But farmprogressshow.com, you can book your hotel room, buy your advance tickets at a discount. Everything you'd need to plan your day with maps and exhibitor lists, category listings, and all those kinds of things. So a pretty good hub of information there at the website, and the smartphone app for each show. It works whether you've got data signal or not. Once you get it downloaded, it works even if the cell phone towers, but with the free Wi-Fi from John Deere, we should not have any problems at all. A little bit like having the show program right there on your smartphone when you get the app downloaded.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just, always thankful for all the effort that the exhibitors go through to put this thing together, and then for the farmers for coming out and visiting. It takes a whole lot of work. We work on it all year long for those 3 days. and just look forward to another great event. It's the job now that we're at permanent sites is to make sure that each show is new and fresh, and this one certainly is. There's a whole lot of new stuff going on, traffic routes, food service, just everything gets a refresh since the last time we were in Boone. So really excited.
And welcome back to the show. I talked with Connor Bremen from Advanced Trading. He worries about the soybean demand for export to China from the United States. We've heard from the campaign trail from last week about tariffs again. Here's Connor Bremen. Connor, do you have any concerns about soybean futures for the next couple of months until November?
Absolutely, I have concerns. We're still, like I said, we're not sure on yield. Soybeans need a good August to finish strong, but right now, exports are not what we want to see. We really need to see them pick up. So you couple that, let's say the exports maybe don't come until later in harvest. We have some decent yields, and you couple that with some weakness in the corn futures. That's not really a recipe for much of a rally from here. And so, we're about we're $1.80 off roughly from the highs we saw back in June. So it's hard to say that we see weakness from here, but we've seen lower prices previously, historically, right? 1063, we know we can go much lower. So if we see some type of hiccup in export demand or something that really doesn't make U.S. soybeans attractive, yeah, I think there's a real chance to be concerned. And then the other thing I'll say is getting past harvest. We really need to be thinking about we're not the number one player in soybean production, and we haven't been for a while. Brazil is going to plant their soybeans, October, November, December. If we look back at last year, they had some delays in planting, and we saw soybeans run above $14 for briefly. Maybe it was a week to 10 days, and then they got the crop planted. They had some favorable weather, and we saw the soybean price fall off. So I'm going to be very cognizant of that fact. And when we're looking forward to 2025 hedges for soybeans, I think we need to be ready to hedge into that uncertainty of the Brazil soybean harvest and be ready for that. I really think that's when we start looking at seasonality, that's a new thing that we need to be ready to be aggressive, I think, in that November, December, January timeframe.
What is your sources for Brazil's soybean production to China?
Yeah, as far as exports go and what they're shipping to China, right? We know if they have the producing, that's where China likes to buy their soybeans first. So we know that they have a good soybean crop. Maybe it's not great, but we know it's good. And so just looking forward, that's the question, is how much does China have to come to the table to the United States? We saw this back, if we're drawing correlations to past years, the one that gets brought up is probably 2020 as much as anything, where we saw funds short. The price was significantly weaker going throughout the summer. And then around, in August of 2020, we really saw China step in and buy a bunch of soybeans. And so 2020 was different because that was a COVID year, right? They had to step in. And then also we had the derecho in Iowa that affected the production. But, if I wanted to be a bull in the market, that's what we'd like to see, is that maybe China really steps up to the plate, likes the cheap soybeans, and fills that pipeline and gets some demand back for the United States. But if the Brazil crop's there and that satisfies it, right, that's going to be where they go first.
How about the wheat markets?
Wow, what you want to talk about volatility? Holy crap! We saw potential issues with how Russian wheat harvest was going to go and how that Russian wheat crop was. And we saw the all three of the wheats rally significantly. We saw it go north of $7 on Chicago wheat, and then we saw it drift right back down to levels we saw before. And so I think the key takeaway is for the US farmer, there was never any production issues in the wheat market, right? We've always had good to great yields. Coworker Brady Huck is keep me updated in Kansas. They've had good yields. Me locally, right around me is not a big wheat crop area, but south of me is. We've had good wheat yields. The U.S. had that, and so we needed to take advantage of that price spike. And now moving forward, I don't know if the story's over, right? We could still debate what's that Russian wheat crop going to look like, and also the EU, European Union, France, right? They're having some issues harvesting their wheat crop too. So I don't want to be all negative. There's potential that we could see a little bit of a rally, but I think you need to be prepared for the lower prices and be ready to take advantage of those quick spikes that we saw. Make sure we learned from these past 4 months of how fast it can move up and down.
Roads of Illinois. Corn futures finished in up 7 to 8 cents. Soybean futures finished in up 4 to 5 cents. Wheat futures finished in up 3 to 4 cents. Now that we were going to talk about the livestock market for today on this afternoon. Cattle futures finished in up 7 to 9 cents. Feeder cattle finished in down 4 to 6 cents. Lean hogs finished in up 8 to 9 cents. Texas crude oil finished in up 3 to 6 cents per barrel. Dow Jones finished in thanks to Cesar Cruz from Advanced Trading. And Matt Jungle Man from Farm Progress. We're running out of time on our show on Back Roads of Illinois. You can listen to our show wherever you get your podcast. This has been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a good day.